All right, welcome everybody back to the Auto Formation Podcast, episode 16. If you're new here, if you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Auto Formation Podcast. And if you're an audio listener, make sure you're following on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music. And make sure you guys are following the Instagram and the Facebook page, as well as my personal TikTok, to get all the up-to-date information about all of the podcast episodes that are going to be coming out and just questions that I'll be posting on social media. But today we're going to be getting into quite a bit, a recap of the NBA Finals. The parade has happened. Obviously, the finals are over. Gonna kind of go over, a general overview of the finals, what's next for both teams, and moving forward in the NBA on the offseason. The World Cup, we're gonna be talking about that. The Bulls hiring a new coach, and Patrick Mahomes signing an extension with the Kansas City Chiefs, and more. I'm glad to have you guys here for episode 16, so let's get into it. All right, so now that the finals are over and the parades happen, the New York Knicks are NBA champions for the first time in 53 years. You kind of look at it like, okay, what's going to be next for both of these teams? How's the NBA going to look going into into next season? And I'm just breaking it down like this. I mean, for the Knicks, they've obviously accomplished the goal, but you obviously want to continue to build, and the first part is trying to keep everybody here. I think there may be some contract restructuring with Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson, I think Josh Hart as well, possibly, just to ensure that everybody is compensated, but also they're not gonna, lose everybody, because I think that retooling, sure, a lot of championship teams are able to retool their roster and still be able to compete and be able to defend their championship. But you just got to be careful with kind of messing with the team chemistry, because this team had great chemistry all year. And so I just think that this was a team that kind of came together in the right way. I'm not going to say that, I thought that Jalen Brunson was going to be the star that he's become, because I feel like that everybody's saying that. And I honestly did not think 4 years ago, whenever he was coming from Dallas, he was going to turn into the star he is now. And so I'm not going to try to, play revisionist on that and be like, oh, I called it, I knew it. No, I had no idea that Jalen Brunson was going to turn into this. I'm glad that he found a place in New York where he can thrive. And Mike Brown has really, been able to kind of bring that that star side out of him. And then I think also bringing this team together of people who were either on good teams or not so great teams that were kind of cast off. They were like, okay, we don't need them. They kind of brought them together here in New York. And I think that resilience and chemistry is what led them to their first NBA championship in 53 years, in 5 games against a team that a lot of people said that they didn't have a great chance against because of how talented they are. And obviously Wemby is 7'5", so he's a completely different beast. So they knew going in, pretty much they didn't really have the support of the major sports media on their side. And then, depending on how you look at how the Spurs celebrated beating the Thunder, and I don't know, that's controversial. Depending on how people look at it, you could say that the Spurs thought that it was going to be a cakewalk to come in and beat the Knicks and get their championship. But obviously that's not what happened in the series. So the Knicks is just about, making sure that any retooling they do isn't going to mess with the team chemistry, and just focus on defending their championship. For the Spurs, realistically, it's their youth, it's youth and inexperience. You could point out to the Thunder a couple years ago. They just couldn't get the job done a couple years ago in the playoffs, and then they come back and they win their championship. They were young. They're still young, but obviously the Spurs are very young and inexperienced themselves. But I'm not gonna completely write off their performance as they're just young and inexperienced. They came out and they did not play a full 4 quarters of basketball, and the stats show it. I mean, we could say, and I know that a lot of the Spurs players have said, especially Victor Wembanyama has said, that they dominated the series, which they led the series. But if you go look at the numbers, I mean, they won the first quarter convincingly. They won the first quarter convincingly. And I think that they won the first quarter every game of the series. They were always up by at least, double digits every time in the first quarter. Now, if you go look at those stats further, they lost the second quarter, they lost the third quarter, they lost the fourth quarter, every game, just about. But like overall total points in each of those quarters, they lost. They lost each one of those. They went into the second quarter with a lead. They end up losing the lead, and by halftime, the game was close. And then the Knicks would make their comeback in the third quarter. They would win the quarter, and then by the fourth quarter, we're looking at a situation where they had to come back, or where they're only down by a possession or two. And so you kind of have to think like that's not really dominating so much as you front ran, like you had a good start, like you led the race in the beginning, but you kept getting caught at the end of the race. So you think about it in terms of like track. If somebody's running a race, they start off leading the pack, and then by the end of the race, they get chased down and lose. Like, I mean, yeah, you could say you dominated the first part of the race, but then you let people catch up to you in the second part, and then the third part and the finale, you lose. You end up trailing behind everybody. So it's like you could say you dominated the beginning of the race, but that doesn't mean anything. And that doesn't mean anything. You lost to this team in 5 games. You won one of the games, and then the other losses, one of them was a historical finals collapse. I mean, 29-point lead was the biggest finals collapse in NBA history. So you just got to look at it like, okay, they were the better team. And to people who say, oh, no, they weren't the better team, I mean, since the beginning of the season, I mean, or since December, if you want to go back just from a couple months, they've played the Knicks 7 times. They've lost 6 of those times. How can you say you've dominated a series or dominated a team when you've beaten them once out of 7 times? And so I just think they need to have some time to kind of come to terms with that, I guess. But at the same time, they need to figure out how or what this team's going to look like going forward, because youth and inexperience is no longer the excuse for this Spurs team. They've gotten to the finals. They've beaten the defending champions last year with the back-to-back MVP on the team. So now the expectations are a lot higher for them. And so, but also at the same time, much like the Knicks, they're now the hunted. People are going to try to game plan better for Wemby, which is hard. Obviously, he's 7'5", so obviously Wemby needs to meet with whoever or talk to whatever legend he needs to talk to, and develop more of a post game and have a certain baseline bag that you could get into. I mean, some drop step. I mean, something that can get you quick, easy baskets, and then kind of build on to that. I mean, Hakeem Olajuwon was one of the best at that. I mean, he built his bag on like, how can I get to the basket easy? How can I make scoring easier? And so maybe he has to reach out to him. I don't know. But I mean, Wemby, I still think is a phenomenal player. I do. I mean, he's going to be a phenomenal player if he continues to develop. I mean, he's obviously only 22 years old, but this is not this because they reached this pinnacle so soon. People are expecting him to build on that. And even the fact that it's the Spurs legacy and the organization is built around winning and competing at the highest level. So just by the nature of what team they're on, this youth and inexperience isn't going to fly. It's not going to fly. So honestly, these teams may not be back next year, just simply on the fact that, when there's a formula for how to win a championship, a lot of teams are going to jump on that bandwagon. They're going to try to figure out, well, what did the Knicks do to win the championship? What did the Spurs do to get there? we got to figure out what they did and try to in a way to match that. I mean, obviously you're not going to find a lot of 7'5" Frenchmen walking around, but you can kind of build the roster in a similar fashion. But no, it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams kind of retool their roster to create a different, not necessarily a different team, but a more improved team. Because obviously when you get to the finals, you think like, okay, we don't need to change much. But in order to repeat, you have to it's better to figure out the things you need to get better at and then tweak the roster that way, so you're not going into next season with the same mentality and the same, game plan. So like I said, kudos to the Knicks. First title in 53 years. I know the city of New York is crazy, or has been crazy, and it's probably never going to stop for them, but super happy for them. And then San Antonio, I have a feeling they'll be back. Maybe not. If it's not next year, it's gonna be soon, especially with this young roster they have. Dylan Harper. My goodness, man! Like he's gonna be. He's gonna be a guy. I'm telling you, he is gonna be a guy. If the Spurs let him be a guy, he's gonna be a guy. And then obviously, I mean, him and Wemby, I think they could be a really good tag team moving forward for the Spurs. So, man, great finals. Each game was a heart attack. But yeah, New York Knicks, 2026 NBA champions. I'm proud for them. All right, guys. So, World Cup has been going on for this past week. The USA has already moved on. Wow. Two victories. One, the first one against Paraguay, 4-1. I mean, I didn't expect that. I mean, like I said, I only really watched the World Cup. I'm not a huge soccer fan, but I'm watching the World Cup. US was doing their thing against Paraguay. And then facing Australia, which honestly, back-to-back games with the other team getting an own goal, Paraguay doing it, and then Australia following suit. I mean, that has to have not happened before. I'm sure of it, because what are the odds that both teams that the U.S. faces does an own goal back to back? It's just amazing to me. But 4-1 to Paraguay and then 2-0 against Australia puts them 2-0 and puts them into the round of 32. I mean, and then against Australia, didn't have Christian Pulisic for that one. He had a calf injury. He was out. I mean, this is impressive from the U.S. so far. I mean, I believe Mexico and then Germany has also moved on. Germany, my goodness. I mean, I think they played, I forgot who they played. Sweden, I think, they beat them 7-1. 7-1, which was pretty crazy. But honestly, going forward, I mean, USA is on a roll. They're on a roll right now. And I mean, just watching some of the games, I mean, this first week they had so many 1-1 ties, and just ties in general. That's why I feel like that's why I only think there's like 3 teams that moved on so far, because at the beginning of the World Cup, there was just tie. Everybody was tying. And so I think there was one group, I forget which group. I think the entire group had all 4 teams in that group tied. And so it's just like after the first few games, they just tied. And so, I mean, at this point, I mean, the USA is kind of playing with house money. Their next game is against Turkey. And I mean, it depends on how they come out of this game. In this game, they're probably going to, since already moving on, it's kind of, I mean, you obviously want to win. That's the thing. You obviously want to win, but I think the game plan for them is, playing playing players that don't normally play, and then just kind of seeing what's going to work moving forward in the tournament. So I personally think that's my game plan for any of the other countries that have moved on to, they already know they got a spot in the round of 32, is to just kind of, let's see what's going to work. Let's see what lineup is going to work and what players really want to play. So yeah, I mean, man, the World Cup, my goodness, it's like March Madness, but for soccer. And that's what it's been like so far, at least in my opinion. The games have been very entertaining. And I just think that this time, I think the USA has a good chance to go far. Now, winning the whole thing. I'm not gonna say that just cause I guess North America is hosting it, but just cause the USA is hosting it, I don't believe in anything. I mean, Argentina with the GOAT. I mean, what people say is the GOAT. Messi. I mean, he hat trick. Argentina won that game 3-0. He scored all the goals. I mean, it's the definition of star player if you ever seen one. I mean, and then obviously you have Ronaldo in there for Portugal, but I mean, the fact that they considered sitting Ronaldo in the next game because he had no shots on goal, like he was just out there getting cardio in, and so. I mean, when you have a legend like him and you consider benching him, I know that's tough. I mean, it's his home country. It's the World Cup, and obviously, like I said, he's a legend, and not to be performing when you see somebody you've been compared to so much, and Messi doing a hat trick. All three goals that his country scored were from him. And so it's definitely, I'm sure it's kind of like getting at him to see that because, you obviously want to compete at the highest level and, you want to be better than the people you're compared to, your rivals. And so not being able to do that, I'm sure is hurting him. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to be keeping update. There's so many games going on at all different times of the day and night. But I mean, the good part is that since North America is hosting it, a lot of them aren't going to be like super late. Because I remember, I think one was in Qatar, but one of the World Cups, and those matches were like at 2, 3 in the morning here, and it was hard to watch. You had to just watch the recaps and just kind of figure out, okay, who won this matchup. So yeah, no, I am super excited for the United States to have moved on to the round of 32. This is where the real test begins for them because I know in the last couple of World Cups, we've normally made it out of the group stage and then we just can't figure it out in the round of 32. And so hopefully this time around, we've figured some things out and can make a really good run. So yeah, we're cheering for USA, but nah, but there's some fierce competition. Germany, Mexico, like I said, Argentina is doing it. Spain is another one. Their games have been really good. So I mean, we'll see how the US is gonna pull this out. Hopefully, I can keep talking about them moving forward and going deeper into the World Cup. But whether they move on or not, we're gonna continue to cover the World Cup and talk about it. So, but yeah, World Cup's continuing this week. I'm going to continue to update you guys on it and kind of talk about it. So just be on the lookout for that. All right, guys. So Bulls finally hire a new coach. I'm excited about it, though. I know my face didn't really say that excitement, but I'm excited. The Bulls finally hire a new coach, Tiago Splitter. For those of you real basketball old heads, I guess. I remember Tiago Splitter when he used to play for the Spurs back in the day. Actually, probably more like 10 years ago. It wasn't that far. His playing career hasn't ended that soon, but he was coaching up in Portland with the Trailblazers this past season, hired him as the new head coach of the Bulls. He seems like a very knowledgeable guy about basketball, and he seems focused on getting this team back to what it once was, and I actually believe him. That's coach speak. You hear every coach like, oh, I'm going to restore such and such team to the great prominence of the past and whatnot, and then you only partly believe them. Let's be honest. You know that they're just saying that, and you don't really know if they're actually going to be able to bring your team or the team back to the greatness that they used to have. But I actually believe him. I watched his entire press conference, and it wasn't to me just like coach speak. He seemed like he had a plan for the team moving forward, and then obviously with the draft coming up next week, which I will also talk about and cover once that happens and we figure out where everybody's going. But the draft's coming up, and the Bulls have 2 first-round picks, and you kind of figure out like, hey, this team needs a real rebuild and not just one that's kind of rebuild-ish. We need to be able to rebuild with players that we see being on the team for the foreseeable future, and not just we're just gonna draft them, play them for a couple years, and then push them on out of here. But I fully expect that this roster is still going to have some turnover. A lot of well, some of the players are gonna that are there now are gonna be there. Obviously, with the Bulls having 15,000 guards, some of them are gonna be here on the team, and obviously with the new additions that are gonna be coming in, it's exciting. It's an exciting time for Bulls basketball and things like that. And I mean, especially at a time where sad, that we lost one of our commentators, Stacey King, who was also a part of the first three-peat Bulls team back in the '90s, and losing him and like I said, him passing away. He made all the Bulls games much more watchable this past year and the year before, whenever we were just struggling to be a halfway decent play-in team. He made the games more watchable and more entertaining, and this is just a new era in Bulls basketball. And as a fan, I'm for one excited, and just because seeing the Knicks win, their first title in 53 years. I mean, although it hasn't been that long for the Bulls, it's been long. 1998, yikes! I mean, a lot of people in the league now weren't even born when the Bulls won their last championship. So I'm just looking very much forward to seeing the Chicago Bulls competing for a championship. I'd be the first time since the Derrick Rose and Tibbs era that's going to happen. So hopefully, like I said, we can see them competing for a world championship sometime soon. Hopefully with Thiago Splitter as our head coach and with this front office, which, like I said, I believe in the front office and the head coach, which I can tell you, in the past, I did not trust anybody after Tibbs. I mean, Fred Hoiberg, I didn't trust him. The players were too casual. Jimmy Butler kept calling that man Fred. I didn't know who he was talking about. I was like, oh, the coach. Doesn't call him Coach Hoiberg, Coach Fred, nothing. It was just straight. It was just his first name, and that was it. And I was like, oh, he doesn't have the locker room at all. And so, and just every coach after that. I mean, Billy Donovan, I'll say, did good with what he had, but at that point, I just think the front office was kind of just like shrugging it, and it's like, if they win, they win. If they don't, we got a coach. But obviously, good luck to Billy Donovan. But yeah, like I said, I'm super excited to see where this team is going to go with a new head coach. And sticking with basketball, like I said, the draft is coming up very soon. And so obviously I'm excited to see where, the, stars go. I mean, where's Cameron Boozer going to go? Where is Darren Peterson going to go? I mean, obviously the Wizards have the first pick, and AJ is probably going to the Wizards. He seems very sure of it in the interviews, at least. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't put it past the Wizards to kind of throw a wrench into the draft and the first pick. So obviously at this point, just like with the NFL draft, I mean, the NBA insiders are doing 17 different mock drafts. And honestly, I told you I'm not a big fan of mock drafts, just because I just feel like you just kind of, it's your opinion and you're just kind of playing with it. So it's just like, you're just going to throw anybody in there. It's like, oh, what if AJ doesn't go first and he goes like fifth? Or what if Darren Peterson goes first? And you just kind of, at this point, you're getting bored leading up into the draft. So you're just like, okay, well, we're just going to start making up scenarios. And so I'm not that kind of person. I just want to get to the draft and see what actually happens, because no one's in these war rooms with these organizations. It's just them, so they know who they have on their board, and it's interesting to see what they think and to see what's going to be the best fit, because it's not always the best player available that goes. It's the best fit for the team. So like I said, my Bulls pick fourth. I mean, at this point, I'm just hoping they make a good decision. We picked Patrick Williams the last time we had the fourth pick, and we're still regretting that decision because he has not come along as a player as much as we had hoped for. But at that point, how much do you really hope for a sixth man out of Florida State? He came off the bench at Florida State and then jumped right into being the fourth pick in the draft, just based off potential and the fact that he could possibly be the next Kawhi Leonard is what they thought about it in the beginning. But at this point, at this stage, he's been in the league too long, and it's like, when are those skills going to develop? And maybe it's just the organization isn't the right fit for him, and he might go on somewhere else. I mean, Lauri Markkanen with the Jazz turned into a superstar. He was drafted by the Bulls, and but the difference is that he showed some sort of flash when he was with the Bulls. There was times that he had 20, 30-point games. I'm like, okay, there's some potential there. But he was just young, and we were ready to move on. So, you know, the the draft, NBA draft, is much shorter than the NFL draft. I mean, it's just a night of 2 rounds, and it's just gonna and it seems like it goes fairly quickly, in my opinion. But I'm like I said, I'm just excited to see where a lot of these stars, these college stars, where they end up, and how that's gonna shake out. And then once the draft's over, gonna do a full kind of analysis on like how each pick is gonna affect each team. So like I said, draft's coming up this week. I'm gonna be covering it. I'm gonna actually be talking a lot about it on social media, so make sure you guys are checking that out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the draft and seeing what the new Bulls management do with our 2 first-round picks. All right, so Patrick Mahomes just signed an extension, 8 years, $504 million. Wow, they're locking him in, which I agree. I mean, he's their franchise quarterback. I mean, they looked pitiful without him. I mean, they kind of looked pitiful with him last year, but no, they locked him in $504 million. I mean, with a possibility. The thing is, the thing people probably don't talk about, the possibility it could bump up to about $522 million. I mean, this is a pretty big step for the Chiefs. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, 30 years old. That means this contract would extend till he's 38, 39 years old. And, who knows if he will still be who he is at 38, 39 years old. People I think are still trying to figure out if he's going to be that guy coming off of a serious knee injury. And I'm skeptical. As great as Patrick Mahomes is, how can you know if he's going to come back and be that guy off of a knee injury? I mean, this is his first really major injury in the NFL. And knee injuries, it's gotten a lot better to where like knee injuries aren't like career killers like they were, or you're not the same player at all. But Patrick Mahomes kind of relies on his legs to kind of move around the pocket and make off platform throws, some amazing throws. And then you're telling me we might see a Patrick Mahomes that's a little bit more one-dimensional? I don't know. I'm just not sold on the fact that the Chiefs are going to automatically pick up where they left off and go back to the playoffs and be in contention for a title immediately after that, because of the fact that, actually because of several things, is that injury to Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce's a little bit older, and he had a down year last year. Their receiving core isn't as great as it has been in the past. Their defense took a little bit of a hit. I mean, losing, Trent McDuffie and a couple other key players, and they've replaced them with rookies, which there's normally a kind of a transitional period for rookies to kind of acclimate to live NFL reps in the game. And so you're kind of putting that on rookies and young players. And the fact that their division has gotten better since Patrick Mahomes has been gone. And you know what? I might eat my words later. I'm that might come back and haunt me. They might come out and, be as great as they were, maybe even better. But I mean, you have the Chargers, who are always a great, formidable team against them, especially in the regular season. It's just they have unfortunate luck with linemen. They keep getting hurt. And then once it comes to the playoffs, doesn't really pan out for them. But regular season, Chargers are always a challenge for the Chiefs. You have the Broncos, who possibly, if Bo Nix doesn't get hurt, could have been in the Super Bowl. I mean, given how that game went against the Patriots, they could have easily been in the Super Bowl last year if Bo Nix doesn't get hurt. So Bo Nix is coming back, and they, still have their team together. And then, the Raiders are seemingly like, they're not going to be the little brother anymore. They're not going to be the bottom dwellers. They're going to fight. Like, it's going to be a real battle each time the Chiefs, play them. And even before then, the Chiefs somehow always lost one game to the Raiders. I never understood that. Like, they would play them on Christmas or some random like December game and they just lose. I don't know why. It's unexplainable. Hopefully, I mean, maybe a Chiefs fan can explain it to me, but I just, I would have been a little apprehensive on giving him this extension just because, we don't know what Patrick Mahomes coming off an injury looks like, a serious injury. Like, we've seen him miss maybe a week, maybe two for like a sprain, or like he's left the game and then come back. That's not what I'm talking about. This was a serious knee injury. I mean, he had surgery the next day. I mean, I've seen the videos in training camp. He still has the brace on. Who knows if he's going to play with the brace, if that's going to hinder him. And, he's having to learn. He might have to learn how to play a different way, a different style where it's not putting that knee under immediate pressure. And you can't simulate live reps in practice. Like, your teammates aren't going to try to tackle you with the same viciousness as somebody on an opposite team. So to just be like, oh, well, he's doing great in practice and just write it off as that, I feel like is not going to be good for him and the team overall, because you just won't know until he's out there, and that's probably the part about it. Is like, we can sit here and focus on everything that he's done in the past, but this is pre ACL surgery injury. And now we're looking at Patrick Mahomes post that. And who knows, it might be the same guy. He's able to modify his play to, not have to worry about the knee at all. I mean, obviously, they're different players, but Tom Brady had a similar injury, and he was able to come back and, compete. But Tom Brady wasn't mobile. He wasn't moving around. He was able to stand in the pocket. Patrick Mahomes relies on his legs to continue plays. If we're looking at a Patrick Mahomes, at least in the beginning of the season, that's stationary, that's going to make the games a lot harder to win, because the whole thing about Patrick Mahomes is how spectacular he is outside of the pocket, and how he's able to scramble and make things happen. And like I said, with the receiving core kind of questionable, we don't know if that's going to hurt the Chiefs in the long term. So although in one way he deserves his contract, I just think maybe the end of next season he would have gotten this contract. But I mean, the Chiefs are just doing what they believe they need to do to make sure that their quarterback's locked in, and he knows that they're committed to him. And I get that. But I just, like I said, would have waited until next season, or at least to see how that knee injury is going to affect him. I just want to make sure that my star quarterback is going to come back and be a star, especially in the conference and the divisions that's changed in a 1 year, where the level of competition has elevated and gotten younger. And so those teams that he was beating up on have now seemingly kind of flipped the switch and kind of figured out how good they can possibly be. So, like I said, that's something to keep a watch out for this season. And I'm definitely going to be, tuning in to see whether Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to, either modify his play or be able to work around that knee injury, and see if he's going to be able to be playing as loose and as free as he used to. So yeah, Patrick Mahomes, maybe he'll play the preseason and we get to see it. If he doesn't, we'll see it week 1, but I just want to know how that knee's going to hold up. All right, guys, that was episode 6. Like I said, as always, make sure you guys are liking and following the Instagram and the Facebook at a Formation Podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's where I'll be posting all of the podcast episodes as well. For my audio listeners, I'm on Spotify. I'm on just all of the podcast streaming platforms. So make sure you have something. Spotify, like I said, Amazon, Apple, something. But yeah, great episode, guys. As always, God loves you. God bless you. We'll see you guys next time.